Well, thank you for this delicious film. Oh my goodness. Honestly, after I saw it, I was like, okay, where can I go to my nearest bakery, right?
Yes, yes,
I can't even imagine what it was like for you as a filmmaker to be not only in the presence of all these amazing chefs, these pastry chefs and Yotam, of course, but like, did you have cravings all day long?
It's so funny because yes, of course, how could I not, right? And it's what's sort of sad about when you make a film about food, you oftentimes don't get to eat much of it. And at the end of the event, when we had wrapped production, there were some desserts left over, some pastries left over, and we were able to sample them. But yeah, it's always tough. It's always tough. Yeah, there's rarely time to really, and people don't really, we're working, so people don't really think about offering us something.
I get it. And also, yeah, so that would be a good diet plan, I think. Work on a film about food so you don't have time to eat it.
Exactly.
No, like I said, this is absolutely beautiful. And I want to start talking about Yotam, obviously, because he's such an amazing chef in his own right. Like he could have his own documentary. There's no question about it. But when you were approached to do this, and you only had a short time, you had to work in real time, obviously, right? What was kind of going through your head about trying to find the balance of how much time to spend with him and then, get everything that you needed?
No, that's such a good question. And I tell people when I got involved in this film, the first thing that really attracted to me, it was Yotam. Like I heard his name, I was like, I'm in. Like, because I was already a fan. And I love that he's always so thoughtful and cerebral about food and loves to tell stories behind food. So I knew that he would bring that quality as he was the person kind of guiding us through the event, right? Because we're kind of learning as he learns, in the film. It's like as he's learning about the history of pastry at this time, we're learning, right? So it's not being told to us. We're seeing him kind of make these connections. And that's one of the things we really wanted to do. But it's also because we didn't have the luxury. We had a very short production schedule, so we didn't have the luxury to spend a ton of time with Yotam months beforehand, right? So we had to kind of play catch up a little bit and figure out how to sort of recreate his research and the way he was like thinking about like, okay, how do I best tell this story of Versailles through pastry? How do I tell the rise and fall of Versailles through pastry? And part of that's our wonderful food historian, Deborah Crone, who he learns so much from, and we see them in discussion. Part of it is him walking through the Metropolitan Museum of Art with the curator of that show. And you're just getting these bits and pieces of the history of Versailles and the French monarchy that then he's connecting back to either present day political events or just even how food and culture was so elevated at that time, right? To
Absolutely.
Just demonstrate the splendor of France and the monarchy, and that it was a really good PR job that they did until it wasn't.
Of course, right? And then what I've always find so amazing, especially, and I just appreciated it more even watching this film, but these chefs put their heart and soul into their food, and they spend so much time making it look absolutely stunning and everything. And then after 2 seconds, you release it and it's gone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I love that you brought that up because it's something that Yotam and I talked about a lot when we were just in pre-production and developing the project. And it's something that he really felt strongly about, which I loved. And we were able to do it in the film, is that he wanted to see that kind of the ephemeral nature of it. And that it's created. I mean, yes, the artistry and craft they bring to this stuff. And then in a second it's gone.
Yeah.
And it's also this nice sort of, it kind of follows this arc of Versailles a little bit too, of course.
Yeah, and he was so fascinated. That I love watching that. I don't like, people who are so amazing at what they do. It doesn't matter what profession they are, but especially I'm so into watching chefs and things these days as I get older, and actually being in the pandemic, I've been cooking and baking more too. So it's kind of, I appreciate that more. But what I loved about him too was that he was so excited to learn from every single pastry chef that was there. I found that so fascinating that he was like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah, I love that about him. And I have to say, it's also a director's dream
Yeah.
because that's genuine. He's not acting. He was just so excited to pick these 5 chefs, get to know them, figure out how their minds worked, figure out, how their backgrounds kind of affected who they are in the pastry world. And I mean, I just basically had to put him in front of the camera, having, in conversation with these people. And you could just see his mind working and kind of making those connections. And, he just always had the right question like lined up on deck, because he was genuinely curious about what they did and kind of their plan for this event. And I think he really wanted to get to know them as people too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can tell that for sure. And I wondered, I might not be a very fair question, but because they are all so talented in their own right, there's no question.
Yeah.
But was there one of them that maybe just so completely blew you away with what they did?
I don't, gosh, it's like, I love them all for such different reasons. I think I felt a lot of empathy for Dinara Kasko, the Ukrainian pastry chef, just because her background is more humble.
Yeah.
And also that she doesn't have like a big restaurant behind her or
Right.
a big kind of enterprise behind her, right? I mean,
Yeah.
she doesn't have huge investors, and and she's just through her just passion and ingenuity, she sort of figured out this form of pastry that she does because of her background in architecture. And I don't know, she's just like, as Yotam says, she's such a modern invention.
Yeah.
She's really built her brand and what she does just through social media. But she's extraordinary, right?
Absolutely. Like, oh my God, when they cut into that cake, oh my God. It almost made me want to cry, and it wasn't even mine. It's amazing. So just a couple of minutes up, but what was your biggest challenge in this? Because like I said, your time frame was so short. Was that something that really you were worried about?
Yes. Yes. I think it's, I've said to people recently that I would have loved to have spent time in Ukraine with Dinara and,
Sure.
with Janice Wong in Singapore, and more time with Bumpus and Parr in London. We got to do a quick visit there. But it was so condensed. I think the biggest challenge was, how do you tease out all these stories, all the different 5 chefs. It's a lot to keep track of. Then there's Yotam's story. And then there's the story of Versailles, right? Through the actual history of it, but also through pastry. So I think the editing and the structure of the film was by far, and it usually is, it's true of most films, but it felt like a lot to sort of weave together, but so that you still felt that you were having one experience. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if there had been maybe more resources and more time, it might have been easier to do that. At the same time, the constraints can really help you as a filmmaker.
Exactly, because you've got to really focus in, and you can't,
and you can't go off on tangents. You just, there's no time,
Well, that'll be for your next one, And speaking of next one, so what are we going to get next from you?
So I've been working since the very beginning of COVID. I partnered up with Ruth Reichel, who is, a well-known memoirist and the former editor-in-chief of Gourmet magazine.
Wow.
And we've been looking at how the impact of COVID on the food supply chain.
Yeah.
And Ruth is in the film, and we basically have her kind of take to Zoom and talk to restaurant owners, chefs, farmers, ranchers, fishermen, farm workers, restaurant workers, and basically just kind of tell the story of this moment as it's unfolding, because there has been so many ups and downs for people in the food supply chain. Yeah. I mean, it's been incredible. And the idea is to really just look at where, it's like COVID has done for so many industries. It shines light on what's broken about the food landscape.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to that. Wow, that sounds fantastic. Well, look, we were very lucky here in Toronto to get this film, Cakes of Versailles, at our Hot Docs Festival. So we were very, very lucky. So hopefully you will bring us this new one to next year's festival. And then we can hopefully meet in person, maybe.
Yeah, in person. I was so sad when Hot Docs didn't happen because I've never been. So Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
There'll be more, and you've got more coming, so that's all great. Well, Laura, thank you so much for this film. It's absolutely, I loved it. It's
Thank you so
beautiful. You
much.
did such a wonderful job on it, and like I said, hopefully one day we'll be able to talk and
I'd love
have
that.
some cake together in person.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
have pastry, share pastry.
you got it. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
for
much.
your time. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye, Bonnie.